doing your hair in the kitchen. Some of us came from walking to school. Help us, God. Some of us came from those brown bags you cut up and put over your books and call them book covers. Some of us came from starting our first business in a basement. Somebody better hear me. God will show you all things are possible if you believe. I'm not going to be long. That's why he wanted you here. He wanted you to come with your brokenness and understand that every week he brought his brokenness and God gave him and showed him his possibilities. I remember when he ran for office for Congress for the first time. No machine. People he thought would be with him weren't. Hello. Wait a minute. Come on now. Folk he thought had his back, left his back. Others put a dagger in his back. And folk were saying, he ain't gonna win. He doesn't have a chance. I remember talking on the phone with him, and I could hear him crying on the other end. Hear him crying. I said, Elijah, you gonna win this. He said, Doc, how do you know? I said, my daddy said so. And on that night he won. Political heads were turned. I got in my car, rode down there as a proud pastor of Elijah Eugene Cummings, said, look at God. Take you from South Baltimore and put you in Congress. Don't you tell me what God can't do. Why, that's the first thing. You know why he wanted you to come to church? He wanted you to come to church because he knew, and he came to church because all of us, especially those in this room, need a regrounding of your grounding. Need a regrounding of your grounding. Some of us have forgotten what we were brought up on. We've forgotten it. When somebody died in my neighborhood, you had a grief buffet. Somebody came in with a ham. Somebody brought greens. And somebody brought a pie. Somebody was around the neighborhood collecting money. Child, I remember when there were only a few cars in the neighborhood. And so everybody would pile into a car like a national almanac, trying to set a new record, going to the beach. I remember when we had barbecues in the backyard and when a sprinkler was your swimming pool. But we grew up with integrity. We grew up caring for each other. We grew up with a sense of selflessness. Help me, somebody. Elijah came to church every week because he knew how easy it is to forget where you've come from. As a friend of mine once said, a person was speaking, trying to let people know how impressive they were. And they were telling them that the church was having a dinner after church, and they were having chitterlings and collards. Somebody said, what's that? Chitlins and collards. But sometimes we have forgotten where we've come from. And sometimes we have to make sure our nation does not forget the very things that have been planted in our spirit. Elijah brought you to church today so that that moral compass can be reset, so your grounding can get back, so that we can remember we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, of which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He brought you to church to be regrounded, because we can we can forget it. We can get so caught up in the new place where we are that we forget the old place that brought us there. My God, some of us grew up on Amazing Grace. Some of us grew up on The Lord Is My Light. And we've forgotten that in the end, we will not stand before presidents or kings. We will stand before He who is the judge of the ages. And when I see Him, I want to stand shoulder to shoulder with all of those who have stood before me and not be ashamed, because I'm grounded in where I came from. His mama and daddy were preachers. They were Pentecostal preachers. Y'all missed that. No, don't you equate everything alike. Oh, no. In a Pentecostal home, you're going to learn how to pray. Am I right, brothers and sisters? And in a Pentecostal home, you go into church, or somebody going to plead the blood on you. They're going to pour oil on you. And I promise you, they're going to cast out a devil. Yes, they are. Am I right? Am I right? Elijah could never wanted to forget that. He didn't want to be driven around and forget when he had to scrape money together to make payroll. Somebody better hear me in here. He didn't want to be flashy and forget what it was like to have folks say, I'll pay you later, Mr. Cummings, and be able to live with that and accept it. He never wanted to lose what was grounded in him. And I think he brought you to church because too many in our country are forgetting where they came from and what was instilled in them. We were not taught to be divided. Mama would backslap you if you talked out of turn. Somebody in here, remember this line? I didn't beat you for what you did. I beat you for how you said it. Help me, somebody. Elijah said, I never want to lose that ability to talk to folk and to get along with folk. We may disagree on the issue, but you are still a person and I'm still a person, and we're still trying to get somewhere. My mama taught me that. My mama taught me I'm not worse than anybody, but she also taught me I'm not better than anybody. And she taught me that the God I serve will make a way for everybody. She taught me how to take care of the least, the left out, the lonely, those that can't lift themselves. Do you know why Elijah was so articulate? He never forgot his grounding. I heard people mentioning that Elijah was a prophet, or rather was like the prophet Elijah. Nudge somebody and say, get this. They're talking about Elijah the prophet, but Elijah was a prophet. A prophet, according to Walter Brueggemann, an Old Testament scholar, says a prophet does three things. A prophet critiques the dominant ideology. A prophet articulates the public pain, and the prophet offers up creative solutions for those who cannot find their way. I've got news for you. Because he stayed grounded in who he was, Elijah would always critique the dominant ideology. He didn't care whether you liked it or not. His voice would rise, his lip would quiver. He'd say, come on now, we can do better than this. He'd look at you and the hand sometimes starts shaking. You see that knot on the other side of his hand just moving. Why? Because Elijah critiqued what was not right in America. But not only did he critique, he spoke for folk who had no voice. Why? Because he grew up having no voice. He grew up in a community, in a world where we were not allowed to do what we can now do. And Elijah said, as God gives me breath, I will speak for folk who can't speak. I will articulate for folk who cannot articulate. I need you to grab somebody and tell them, don't forget where you came from. But there's a last reason. He came to church. He came to church, and then I'm done, and then we take him to his final rest. Elijah, I hope I'm telling them why you came to church. There's a last reason he came to church. On Monday to Friday, he's known as the Honorable Congressman Elijah Cummings. Most of you in Washington and in other places know him as the Congressman Elijah Cummings. If you travel the city of Baltimore, in the streets of Baltimore, and someone meets him, rarely will they say Elijah. Rarely. There's too much venerated respect for this man who lives in the heart of the city. Too much respect. And they'll say, Mr. Cummings. You go around town in Baltimore, Mr. Cummings. People on the street, Mr. Cummings, because he's spoken of with great reverence. In New Psalmist, he's Brother Elijah Cummings. And let me share this with you. Monday to Friday, he's solving the problems of the world. In the streets and neighborhoods, he's trying to show possibilities. But when he comes here on Sunday, no fanfare, no entourage, no nothing. He and Maya just come marching right on down that little side, sit right on down. No smile for the camera, just come in and take their seat. Among everybody else in the house, because he comes here for the same reason they do, to get the strength to go back to the assignment that God has given him to do. Some of you are weary in well-doing. Some of you are weary because of all that you have to face in these turbulent times. Some of you are worried and feeling fearful about the state of the union and how things are going to happen. But week after week, Elijah Cummings came to church so that that kind of pessimism could never take rootage in his soul, so that that kind of hopelessness and despair could never be the tenor of his conversation. He came every week because God was telling him, I'll give you the strength to go back and make a difference one more week. All I need you to do is have faith and believe that I will make a way somehow. You all, as Maya said, you don't know how sick he's been over these years. There were times I didn't expect to see him coming to church. And Maya would say, oh, he's coming today. And he would roll right on in, because Elijah would say, as long as God gives me strength, I'm going to be able to go back and fight another day. Never fighting with despair, never fighting with pessimism, fighting with the one weapon Jesus Christ made sure he had. And that weapon was an unshakable faith, a faith that God did not bring me this far to leave me now. Oh, touch somebody and say, hear this, that God didn't bring our nation this far to leave us now. And if God be for us, y'all ain't hearing what I'm saying. If God be for us, he is more than the world against us. So I can rise up and go back to the challenge. I can go back to my district. I can go back to my committee, because the strong hand of the Lord is on me. His wish for you is that you will have a faith that will not shrink, though pressed by every foe, that will not tremble on the brink of any earthly woe. I'm done now. Sleep on, Elijah. Where are you, Elijah? I'm in glory land. It took me a while to get here, but I can stand before my God and I can hear him say, well done. And may the work I've done, may the work I've done, may the work I've done speak for me. us all to stand. Well, buddy, it's the last moments. I need you to hold somebody's hand. This service is nearing its final moments. But this is his gift. This is his gift to you. This is why he wanted you to come to church. Some folk didn't get here today. Some folk didn't make it. Some folk said, nah, but you came. You came. Don't ever forget. And maintain your faith in the rightfulness of God sitting on the throne.